Just a moment. Okay, sounds good. Going to give another minute or so for some latecomers, and then we are going to get started with our session. If you've just joined, we have just opened our room, and we're going to give it one more minute before we begin, and then we're going to get started with our session. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, we are going to get started. Again, thank you so much for joining us today for our Thriving Cities Spotlight Speaker Session. My name is Ms. Shawn Gorman, but I'm going to turn this over to Candace Joe, who's going to go over some light housekeeping for Zoom.
Thank you, Ms. Shawn. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're doing well. So I'm going to be the tech support for tonight's event. So here's some quick housekeeping for Zoom. Just a reminder to everyone to keep your microphones on mute. For any questions or comments during the session, go ahead and put those into the chat, or you can message them directly to the facilitator. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the event, so we can save those for then. And then just a reminder, the event will be recorded. And then if you have any questions or comments during the event for tech support, you can go ahead and direct message me. But if you have any other questions, yeah, feel free to just message us, and we'll be here for your support. Yeah, have a great event.
Thank you so much, Candace. All right. So before we begin any of our sessions, we like to acknowledge the land and the communities that have lived in this area for time immemorial. We acknowledge the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary homelands of the Akimel O'odham and Peepash peoples. Furthermore, we recognize the support and sovereignty for Arizona's 22 tribes and the many tribes that have traveled through these lands over time, including my own. Yaat a she Mishan Gorman Yinishe, Toy Hicklini Nishle, Kia Ani Bashichin, Senja Kinadeshache, Sinajini Ada Shanellen, Nazlina Dot East Oza Detnasha. My name is Ms. Shawn Gorman, and I'm the Director of Development here at the Phoenix Indian Center. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and us-zam. I introduce myself to you using my traditional language. I am from the Water Flows Together clan, born for Towering House. My maternal grandfather is from the Honeycomb Rock people or Cliff Dweller clan, and my paternal grandfather was from the Blackstreak Wood people clan. Thank you so much for joining us today. I've been here at the center for almost 5 years now, and I'm very, very proud of the amazing work that we've done here at the Phoenix Indian Center. And I wanted to give some time over to talk about who we are at the center before we begin. Our vision is to see a healthy and thriving Indian country. And the way that we do that is by providing culturally relevant services, including those for youth, for workforce development, language and cultural revitalization program, prevention programming, and civic engagement services. We were formed in 1947 by Leon Grant. He came here with a group of individuals who unfortunately had come through the relocation programming, and he had very little money and very little resources to work with, and he literally started our center out of a closet space. And he found right away that many, many community members of Indigenous communities really needed some support and networking services, particularly to find employment, as many of them were providing money to sustain their families, not only locally, but in their ancestral homelands. In 1954, we became a nonprofit as a 501c3. And we had some additional partnerships that we made with the city of Phoenix to find another location where we could begin a more permanent home. And so over the course of 76 years, we have drastically increased the number of services and individuals that we reach. On an annual basis, we reach over 9,000 people individually and have an indirect reach of over 34,000 people. We represent an average of 93 different tribal nations that come through our doors and access our services. So really, really amazing. We are currently located in the Native American Service Center on Central Avenue across from Central High School. And again, our workforce development services have been our longest standing services, but we now have youth prevention, language and culture, and civic engagement services. We also have a great hand in general operating services for Native people that are accessing things like rental assistance, eviction prevention services, and other types of immediate crisis needs. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce June Shorthair, who is a civic engagement specialist who we work with here at the Phoenix Indian Center to review the reason why we're here today in this evening session.
Thank you, Michonne. Hello, everyone. Just quickly, I am an enrolled member with the Acoma O'odham people from the Hill River Indian community. I'm also born for the Bitterwater clan. That is where my maternal father comes from. And as we know, we have a lot of different clan and relationships on both sides. So thank you very much for attending. The Thriving Cities Initiative is taking place across the country at many of our urban Indian centers. And in Phoenix, the Phoenix metro area is a thriving city with all the cities involved. Our community makes an impact. All the departments that Michonne mentioned, they have been making some huge strides in servicing our community. The urban American Indian indigenous relatives that we serve and help is giving back to their community, engage with our local and tribal leaders, and to get involved in many of the initiatives and projects in their urban areas. This week, we celebrated National Voter Registration Day on the 19th. Yesterday, we recorded a session on community organizers that included youth and the coalition sector. Today, you will hear from an urban Native American leader. Michonne?
Thank you, June. I'm very, very happy and humbled to be able to present and bring to you Doreen Garlid, who was elected to the Tempe City Council in 2020. As a member of the Navajo Nation, she made history as the first Native American to be part of the Tempe City Council. Doreen's granduncle was a World War II Navajo code talker in the U.S. Marines, and her great-grandfather was a Navajo medicine man. For 45 years, Doreen and her mother have offered free educational community presentations about Navajo culture and family life, for which she was recognized in 2020 with the City of Tempe MLK Diversity Award. Doreen's father was a career Navy man, and she is proud to be called a Navy brat. In the 3 decades prior to her election, she and her husband Scott raised their 4 children in Tempe, where she became involved in local schools, nonprofits, and service organizations. As part of her council service, Doreen serves on the Human Services and Community Safety Committee as co-chair, and she represents the city as the co-chair on the Maricopa Association of Governments Local Jurisdiction Committee and as the vice chair of the National League of Cities Human Development Federal Advocacy Committee. She's also on the leadership circle for the NLC's Local Indigenous Leaders Committee and a member of the Tempe Impacts Education Foundation, the Tempe Historical Society, the Kiwanis Club of Tempe, the Tempe Women's Club, South Tempe Rotary, and Tempe Leadership Class 34. Doreen and her husband Scott raised their 4 children in Tempe and now enjoy spending time with their grandson Bo. So now I'm going to turn our time over to Ms. Doreen Garlid.
Thank you so much. I need to shorten that thing. That's really long. It's embarrassing to sit there and listen to that, all that. But I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This, I will say at the beginning that this really kind of, I feel like this comes full circle. My mom, when my parents moved to the Valley, she craved Native speaking in Navajo, she craved being around other Indigenous people. And it was the Phoenix Indian Center that made her happy to be a part of, to join in activities, to be a leader, to write articles for the, I think that time it was called Eagle Free Press. I'm not sure if they still do that. But I kind of feel like this is full circle now that you know, somebody who really relied on the Phoenix Indian Center to bring people together, and then I get to come here and speak. So I just want to say thank you so much. It means a lot. So I'm just going to quickly go through some slides to tell you a little bit about me besides what you just heard. I am Tatnazani and I am Belagana. I can say my other clans. I wish I was able to say this in Navajo, but that's one of the things I'll talk about in just a little bit. So you can go to the next slide. So when I was younger, so being an urban native, I have never lived on the Navajo reservation. I was born in California, and when we got to California, we would, my dad was in the Navy, so we were in many different schools. And when kids found out that I was Indian, they asked why I didn't have a feather in my head. And so my mom made it a point then of putting us, these are pictures of me and on my traditional outfit. And then we would go to schools and try to talk to the community about really what Navajos were more, and that we didn't all have feathers, and try to get people to understand a little bit more about Native American cultures. And so those are just young pictures of me doing that. And I've been doing it with my mom ever since. She passed away a few years ago, but we love doing those together. You know, next slide. So my great grandfather, his name is Hastine Benetni. And it's really fun to be able, this is the gentleman who was the medicine man in our family. He did the blessing way ceremony. And at one time on the Navajo reservation, or all the reservations, the government came in and they wanted to give everybody census numbers so that they could start registering the Native Americans with that. And of course, most communities did not trust the government. So they asked my great grandfather, who was pretty well known and respected, if he would help kind of convince other tribal members to start getting these Navajo census numbers. He was listed number 3. I'm like 626,000, but he was a very trusted gentleman at that time. You can go to the next one. This is a picture of my grandparents, Walter and Frances Kirk Scott. It was in 1941. It was in Ganado, Arizona, and that's Ganado, Arizona is where my mom was born and raised. And the picture where it says Mary Frances Scott, that's my mom's name. That's that cute little girl right there. That's my mom. Next slide. And this is my parents right now. As you can see, my dad is Belagana. He's Irish. None of my siblings, none of us look like my dad. We all look like my mom. We all got her great coloring. And this is just, I just wanted to share a picture with you, just to see a little bit of my background there. Go to the next page. Next one. This is my granduncle. He is my grandmother's brother. His name is George Kirk. And they had told us stories about when they were kidnapped and taken to the Phoenix Indian School and forced to go to school there. George Kirk told us how he and my grandmother were whipped every time they spoke Navajo. But just a few years later, after he had gotten out of the school, he was joining the Marines to be able to use that same language to save our country. And these, so you see the single picture of him when he enlisted. The picture on the right-hand side, he is on the right, and the picture on the bottom left, he is in the left picture. Okay, next slide. And I just have this up there. I know that a lot of people probably know this poem. It was my mom's favorite, and I think about this all the time. The picture that you see in that slide is actually a peyote ceremony that they had for my mom, and the medicine man told me that at midnight we could step out. He said, grab your camera when you go out because you'll be able to take a picture, and I did, and I love that picture. It makes me think of my mom, and I get to put her beautiful poem right next to it. All right, I think that's all my slides.
All right. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction.
Just a quick introduction with pictures. Get everybody's attention and excited about this.
Yes. So the purpose of tonight and this session is to really be able to give our community an insight into the world that Ms. Garlid is coming from. And, we really appreciate, her being able to take up that Indigenous space in our community leadership position because we know it can be so impactful. And so we have a few questions that we're going to be asking Doreen, and then in just a few moments after we get done with a few questions, we want to open this up to the room so that our community members can ask some questions about her and how we can get involved in the community as well. And so, June, would you like to run through the questions that we have?
Absolutely. The first question that was provided was, Doreen, how do you continue to encompass your cultural values and, most importantly, the core value of community, the people in the urban settings you live in?
So I think, when you think back about most cultures, but in the Native American culture, the family unit is the most important thing, and life, things that you do revolve around that. And so I think when you are an urban Native American and your family then only ends up being the people that are living in the house with you. Typically, the rest of your family isn't near you. And so you've got to be able to find that community and try to bring them together, because the things that you are missing in the urban environment are the same things that other Native Americans are missing. They're missing the ceremonies that they can be a part of, a lot of the other traditions, traditional games. And so I think what's important is when you are in this community that you find an extended family to be able to help you continue your cultural values and understandings of who you are. And I think that's one of the things that, again, I mentioned at the very beginning, that really helped my mom. She grew up on the reservation, and then she ended up in Phoenix, and she was really alone and felt alone. The Phoenix Indian Center was a place that she was able to go and feel like she was part of a larger family. And again, I think it's really important that we look for that. So raising my kids in Tempe, my kids were in school, and there were probably only 3 or 4 other Native American families that became a part of those schools as we were growing up. So it was really important to us to find ways to connect with those other families, share our cultural values, share our understandings, and make them that urban family that was really important for us.
Wonderful, wonderful. Next question, please. Thank you. The other question we have is a little lengthy one, but I'm sure you can encompass your answer thoroughly. Take as much time as you need to address this question. The question is, what would you like to say to young Native American urban people and all the young people to encourage them to be active in the civic process, or create their own space to make positive change as they will soon be leaders at their school, city, tribal communities, and in the country?
So I think this goes very similar to the other question, is really finding their community, finding others that are of Native community to build upon their relationships and strengthen that. I will give an example. So for me, I joined the National League of Cities, which is made up of like 2,000 cities across the country, and they have annual conferences. In our and when you go to these, there's other organizations or groups, and they're called constituency groups. There is a African American constituency group, there's an Asian American, and there's a Hispanic cultural group, but there wasn't a Native American group. When I got on council and was attending these conferences, they were talking about how important it was to have the Native community involved in being a part of National League of Cities. The thing was, they weren't giving us a space to do that. And so I think what's really important is how you said on here is that you got to create your own space, and you really do. So what we did is we started contacting, or when we would recognize somebody at the conference that we thought looked Native American, we approached them and said, hey, let's start our own constituency group. So it took us literally 2 years to get that moving, but we were able to do it. So now we have something called the Local Indigenous Leaders, and it gives us a space to go and talk about barriers and opportunities for Native Americans across the country. But not having a group like this, we felt alone. When you go to these conferences and there are 4,000, 5,000 people at this conference, you are in a small community, and it's hard to get your voice known. So for the youth, and not anybody right now that's listening, it's really important that if you want to see change in your community, you have to step up and be a part of that change. You can't do it by just sitting at home and wishing that somebody was in a position that you are looking at in leadership that look like you, or had the background or the cultural background that you had. You really need to step out and be a part of that. And I think that's what our youth needs to do. I think that's what our adults need to do. I think it's really important that if you want to be a part of the process, you need to register to vote, to make sure that you are a part of that, and then step up into those leadership roles. One thing my mom used to say to me is that in our culture, that it's a lot of times we stay to the back and watch how things happen and then interject when we can interject. And so, but you can't get a lot of things done if you're in the back of the room. You need to be in the front of the room, and you need to be making sure that people can hear your voice. We are the ones who have to affect the change, and we can't do it if people don't step up to do that change.
Wonderful. That's a great accomplishment, I believe. I think hopefully many cities across it's an international program, is it not?
It is. It's across the country, and it's over 2,000 cities and towns and villages that belong to it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let's see what this next question is. All right. Ms. Garlid, what message do you want to convey to our audience today about why it is so important for Indigenous people to be a part of the civic engagement participation efforts in their community?
So there was a council member that was had for a couple years before I got on Tempe City Council, trying to get the city to pass a land acknowledgement resolution. And she's not Native American. And it was not happening. When I got on council, speaking with an Indigenous voice on the importance of trying to do this, but making sure that we did it so it's not just words, it's actually something we will make an action of. We were able to get a land acknowledgement for the city of Tempe. And the thing with our land acknowledgement is that we did not write that land acknowledgement. We talked to the 4 Southern tribes that are around the city of Tempe, and they wrote the land acknowledgement for us. So it's their words that we are here right now to live by. The last line of that is that part of the land acknowledgement, the last line is that we are saying that we are going to look at the values of the Indigenous people in our community, and we are going to think about them in all the actions that we take. So what I'm saying is if there was not a Native American person that was elected to this position in the city of Tempe, it's possible it would have taken more years. I think eventually we would have had a land acknowledgement, because I think that that's the type of city that Tempe is, but I was able to get on here and help to move that forward a little faster. And because of that, again, being a part of this, the process, the civic engagements part of that, and from that, we were able to make sure that we were having the land acknowledgement be a living document. So what we've done now is we added a position to our Historic Preservation Commission that was specifically set up to have an Indigenous member on there. Before, there never was one. If you're thinking about historic preservation in a community and you don't have a Native American person sitting on that commission, that is just sounds silly. So now we have a permanent position that is set up for somebody that is appointed by the 4 Southern tribes. So there's recognition on there. We also now started something that in the city of Tempe, when the request goes out to the country, to community, to have artwork done in the city of Tempe, it always says on there, first choice will go to, or first preference goes to city of Tempe residents. Now it says first choices go to city of Tempe residents and local Indigenous artists. So again, I think if not that none of these things would ever have happened, but they have now happened because we had made the choice to first elect the first Native American that can help another council member set up the land acknowledgement resolution. And now we have these other things that are happening in our city because of that. So I think, you may not think that getting on a council or school board or participating in local school government is important, but if you weren't there, it may not happen. So I look at this as, I had 30 years of volunteering in our community on doing a Girl Scout leader, PTOs, boards, commissions. All of those places needs a Native American perspective and cultural background on them to help people move forward on some of the wonderful things that they might want to do. So I think it's really important that if you want change, if you want to see something happen, you have to stand up. You have to raise your hand. So hopefully at the end of this talk, we can turn on everybody's camera and everybody's going to raise their hand, or maybe there's an emoji, but I think we should all be raising our hands and stepping up.
Great. Just kind of one question that it's not on the screen, but we had a little chat before we started, and I thought it was very intriguing. And you also mentioned it in one of your answers, is the city of Tempe. It is recognized as a thriving city, and you share with us the diversity of the city, of how it's growing and how everyone, all your citizens within the city limits are being involved and represented. Can you maybe share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's incredible. This council, they said, is, we've been told, is the most diverse council that you will see in the state of Arizona. So we have 7 members on our council. Our mayor is African-American. We have the first Native American, the first African-American female, the first Asian American, the first out LGBTQ person, and then we have Mexican American, and then the youngest council member that was ever elected. He's been in 2 terms now, but when he was first elected, he was the youngest one on there. So we do have that diversity.
Wonderful.
Okay, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if you were still there. What I wanted to also say is that the thing about that's so important is for all of those diverse backgrounds is that we are now really able to reflect. People can look at our council and they will see themselves in somebody on that council. And it's great to be able to have that ability to reflect your community. And I truly believe that this council reflects the people in the city of Tempe. And again, we are a very diverse community, and we support diversity, and we support other people's cultural backgrounds. And I just think that if it was going to happen anywhere, it was going to happen in Tempe.
Wonderful. And I apologize. Yes, I'm off the screen now. We wanted to focus on you, our presenter. Michonne, are there some questions from the audience that we can share? Oops, Michonne, mute.
Oh, so sorry about that. All right, so the questions that we have in the chat, first is from Nancy, and she asks, Doreen, can you talk a little bit about what it took to get Indigenous Peoples Day passed as a holiday in Tempe?
So the city of Tempe started, it's another one of the things that, again, it's this snowball of getting a Native American on the council and things starting to happen. So our council is very, very supportive of changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. That was our first step. And I've told people that it took our whole entire council to make the vote 7-0 to support that. And it was wonderful. So the Indigenous Peoples Day, when the city of Phoenix passed Indigenous Peoples Day, we started getting some messages from our community that says, how come Tempe's not doing this? And our mayor specifically called me and said, hey, how come we're not doing this? And as I had mentioned earlier, when we were talking before everybody started to come on here, I was interviewed by somebody about the Indigenous Peoples Day that is now a citywide holiday. And he said, well, how did you push it through? You know, how hard did you have to push everybody to get this done? And I said, gosh, that's the crazy thing. I didn't have to push. That's what kind of community, and that's what my council colleagues and the mayor are like. I didn't have to push. I just had to be the voice that said this should be something that we look at. And Then our staff took it, did some research, and brought it back to the council, and it was supported 7-0 for the city of Tempe.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, now we have another question from Belinda, who says, Ms. Garlid, thank you so much for your leadership. As a Native American living here in Tempe for over 40 years, there are so many needs for Diné people relocating, and yet it's often difficult to receive services. What are your thoughts and suggestions?
So I'm not sure what specific services, but if it's, housing or, yeah, I'm not sure exactly which services he's talking about. We do have a human services community or department that helps people here, but we don't have something specifically set up to be able to, if she's talking about services to help urban natives acclimate to the city of Tempe, we don't have something like that. One of the things that I'm looking at doing with our staff is starting a Native American Advisory Committee. And that would be a committee made up of Native Americans and maybe not all Native Americans in Tempe, that we can find ways and things that we need to do to be more supportive of the Native community that's here.
Thanks.
Oh, I see. Healthcare.
Yeah.
Healthcare and education. Services for healthcare and education. I know that the elementary schools and the high schools have a Native American coordinator that's specifically set up to help Native American families and students within those school districts. I also know, because I participated with my family for a while, that in the Kyrene school district specifically, this is what I remember. When my kids were younger, they also had summer programs and after school programs that helped with tutoring students also. So I know as far as education, you can reach out to each one of the school districts, and they do have a liaison that's specifically set up to help with Native Americans. And as far as healthcare, we don't have a healthcare system specifically in Tempe for, not even for city employees. We're part of a healthcare program, but there is not something specifically set up here for that. Regarding healthcare, at least for me, when I was growing up, I went to the Phoenix Indian Hospital is where I went, but I was just told at a meeting at the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community is that they have a very nice hospital there, and any Native American tribe, as long as you have a tribal affiliation, can go to the services at that community.
Thank you. And I'll just throw out there as well, the Phoenix Indian Center, one of the main purposes that we have here for being in the Phoenix area, and we call ourselves the Phoenix Indian Center. However, we serve everyone all across Maricopa County and all the way into Coconino County as well. The idea that we have is to be able to provide as many services to folks as possible. And we are centrally located. And that's typically because we know that so many of our Native communities are very mobile across the county. There is a very high population in the Tempe area. So we're really, really happy to have representation there in the city council. But if there are additional services that are needed, definitely reach out to us as well. We also have referral services for healthcare and other types of support services that are available to community members. So I definitely encourage you to reach out to us as well. And then I think we have one more question. Candace, if you have another one, please let me know. But I do see one more question here. What do you see on the horizon in the city of Tempe that may or may not have an impact on the Indigenous community, either positively or negatively, that we should be aware of?
So as I just said, the Native American Advisory Committee, I think what we need to do for the city of Tempe is try to find a way to bring, at least what I want to do is try to find a way to bring the Native community together in Tempe. If that's a recognition weekend that we do in Tempe that will bring all different backgrounds together, I think that's really important. But I think we don't have anything that's specific for Native Americans, which again, I think that gives us a beautiful clean slate to create things that we think are important for that space. Again, we need to find ways to be able to bring our urban community together and be able to rely and to talk to each other. And again, find places to talk about the barriers or the opportunities that are in our communities. And so hopefully that will be something we can do. But I can't remember who asked that question, but if she wants to reach out to me and if she has any ideas, I'd love to sit and talk to her and figure out what we can do to move this forward.
Amazing. Okay, and we have a follow-up to about the Native American Advisory Committee. Our audience member here, Belinda, would like to know how to get involved in that committee and wants to get signed up today.
Yay! All right, Belinda, you're in. Sorry, you can't get out of it now. So you know what I would do? You can reach me if you go on to the City of Tempe's website. Just type in Doreen Garlid, and it'll give you the contact information for me. And please reach out. I also just want to say this to anybody else: if you would like to meet or talk about city politics or any politics, or becoming a part of the advisory committee, or giving me any suggestions on things that we could do. Oh, yep, somebody put in, there you go. That's my email address. Please reach out. I would love to meet with you. I meet with constituents all the time, and I would love to do that with you also.
And on that committee, are there youth positions available, or are there anything youth oriented for involvement there?
Yep. So we haven't started the advisory commission yet. That's just something we have in the works of, we're doing research to see what that looks like. We've looked at what other communities, cities have, and absolutely there will be a youth component to that. I think the best thing that we can do as a city is to bring in our youth, not only to hear their voices, but to mentor. I think we need to be mentoring kids and youth in our community. But I have to say, we have a Mayor's Youth Advisory Commission, and it's made up of high school, I think it's juniors and seniors, 2 from each school in Tempe. And I will have to say, I've learned a lot from them and what's important to them and what they want to see in their community. And I think, so having the youth voice is really, really important.
Thank you. All right, I see another question. What are your thoughts about smart cities?
Smart cities. I'm not sure what they mean by smart cities.
Linda, would you, if you'd like to, you are able to come off mute as well, if you want to elaborate a little bit on smart cities.
Yes, good evening, Doreen.
Hi.
Yate. My question about smart cities is, my understanding several years ago, approximately 5 years ago, the city of Tempe was one of the demonstration sites to be utilized as a smart city. That's the reason why when you travel around the Tempe area, you see 5G towers, you see at the intersections, all of the, police cameras, all those types of things. And I'm not sure where that was. I think the brainchild, that was actually a professor that was at Arizona State University who wanted to implement that program. And I think initially the thought was that it was going to be a conduit for which municipalities could save money. But you see what has happened in Maui, in Lahaina, because they were trying to change that into a smart city. And I just, there's a lot of positives and negatives associated with that, as you well know. And I'm just wondering your thoughts around that, and if you're familiar with that and where that is in the implementation of it.
Good question, Belinda. I don't know what that designation is, and I don't have any information on it. But if you want to put your email in the chat, I just wrote it down, and I can get in contact with you. I can do some research and get back to you on that.
All right. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Annie.
Right. Yeah, and she's got her email in there.
Excuse me. Sean, and just a quick comment also, if anybody in the audience, if you want to have privacy on what you want to have as far as numbers, just email the Phoenix Indian Center and let us know, and we will connect you with her so you can have your own private discussions, or maybe there might be this great group that will come together and make more changes in the city. Doreen, since we have a little bit of time, I know you're very involved with other Native Americans, other Native American politicians. It's an initiative that you've really supported over the years, not only in the city, the state, and across the nation. Can you maybe share with the audience kind of what that is and what your expectation is and hope?
So are you talking about the local indigenous leaders for the National League of Cities?
Yes.
Yeah, so really what we were trying to do is we were trying to find a space where we could come together and talk about initiatives that have worked or not worked in the other communities across the country. And I think what has happened in the past is that there were so few Native Americans recognized at the National League of Cities that nobody felt comfortable standing up to have their voice heard. Now we can come together as a group. And the wonderful thing about this is once we talked about putting this group together, the president of the National League of Cities met with us and said, 100%, we are making sure that you have this space. We want you in there. And she has been extremely supportive of what we do. One of the things that came out of the National League of Cities with this is they started doing this booklet. It's called the Roadmap to Repair. It is for municipalities to be able to build bridges and relationships with the Native communities that are around them. And it's interesting that there are so many communities that want to have those relationships with the tribal communities and nations that are around them, but they don't really know where to get started, or they feel like such an outsider that they don't even make the attempt. This Roadmap to Repair, and you can look it up on the National League of Cities, you can type in Roadmap to Repair and the booklet will come up. And it gives people, it's like the history of how Native Americans were treated in the United States from the beginning, just brief laws that the government set up that caused problems and a breakdown between the government and the Native communities. And then it talks about things that you could do and some of the issues that we are looking at, the disparity of not equal justice in courts, not health concerns and things like that. So there's a lot of information in there. And then it talks about what you can do to start building those communities. So I think those are the things that I think are really important. And those would not have happened if we wouldn't have stepped up and tried to build this community within the National League of Cities. And I want to say a couple other things just so I don't forget this. If you are interested in learning about running for office and how you do it, there is an organization that Phoenix Indian Center is associated with, but a friend of mine has been on for a while, and it's called Advanced Native Political Leadership. And they have classes. Some you go to a specific location, some seminars are in communities, and other ones you can do online. And their sole purpose is to help Native Americans understand how to run for office or how to support somebody who is running for office. So I would highly recommend, and I believe if you want to reach out to the just to the Phoenix Indian Center, they're associated with them, so you could reach out to them. To the youth in the communities, specifically I'm thinking about in Tempe, but all of there's a number of cities. I know Phoenix has programs like this, but look into their sister cities programs. It's another great leadership opportunity that you could have to be a part of going to a foreign country. I can speak specifically for the city of Tempe. It doesn't cost anything, but the part about the Tempe sister cities is that you get interview practice. So in order to be a part of it, you fill out an application on why you want to be a part of this. You come in, you get interviewed by like 8 adults are asking you questions. So it's great interview preparation. If you are chosen, then you are a part of a group that is going to be learning a lot of things about building relationships with other communities and other countries. And it's a great program. The youth then travel to the other countries, stay there for 6 weeks, and then their partner that they're living with comes to the United States and lives in your house for 6 weeks. It's a really great program. That's one. The other one is look into your cities and look for the Mayor's Youth Advisory Commissions or a Mayor's Youth Commission of any kind. City of Tempe is pretty active. And what the kids get to do is they meet once a month, and these high school students come up with the things that they want to work on for their year. It could be sustainability. It could be better education for the new kids coming into schools. It could be something they want to see changed in the city of Tempe one way or the other. But that's another really great way to learn about leadership and be a part. The other one in Tempe, and other cities might have this also, is we have the Tempe Chamber of Commerce has a program called Tempe Leadership. It started just to be for adults to learn about how the city government runs. It's a really wonderful program. Then they started doing with youth. So the youth can be a part of the Tempe Leadership Youth Program. And again, you will get to go to different parts of the city and learn about how the city runs. You will get backstage viewing of a lot of things that happen at the water department, police department, fire department, all of those things. And it's another way for you to step into being a part of a group of people who are really interested in seeing changes and participating in your community.
Great, wonderful. Michonne, anything you want to add?
No, thank you so much. My next question was going to be if there were things that you wanted to share with us. So I'm so glad that you were able to share that already. And I see that Madeline has inserted several different links. So if anyone wants to learn a little bit more about the Sister Cities program, as well as the Tempe Leadership Program, those links are easily accessible to you. And again, this session is recorded. So if you want to come back and share this with anyone, we're going to be able to allow everyone to be able to look at this all over again. Additionally, we have Councilmember Garlid's information in there so that you can contact her by email to set up any additional speaker sessions or just to have a conversation about, what it's like for her to lead in this role, and also, to have this wonderful connection to the Indigenous communities. Do we have? Oh, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing that you just reminded me of as you were saying that. It's really important that we find a place where we are comfortable. And a lot of times for Native Americans, that's within other Native Americans. I will say that when we passed the land acknowledgement resolution, I received more phone calls from non-natives than I did from natives to say, goodness gracious, this was so long in coming. Thank you so much for doing this. So in our communities, it's not solely Native Americans that are a part of that community or that family support that we have. It's also it's also people who are non-natives who want to support us and really believe in us and believe in our communities. And so we have to remember that it's not always just us in there. My best friend Nancy Puffer, I think she might be this program, but we laughed when I ran for office the first time. She learned so much more about the Native American community, and if I could, I would adopt her as a Navajo in a heartbeat, because she learned a lot more Navajo than I did lately, because she was running my campaign and so many people were asking questions and we were responding in English and our best Navajo. And anyway, but there are so many people that are out there that really support the Native American community, and we need to make sure that we invite them to the table also to be the support behind us as we are trying to move initiatives and items and questions and try to remove those barriers. We can't do it by ourselves.
Thank you so much for that. I think that's really important to know, especially when we consider, what you mentioned earlier about how Native people, many of us have this understanding that, when we enter a room or when we enter a space, we observe more than we would talk.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the current leadership spaces that we see, it is so important for us to be at the front of the room, like you said. And that can be a very uncomfortable place to be in if culturally that's just not your background. So I really appreciate you sharing all those different resources and ways that our youth and our adults can be really active in the community, because it is a learning process, how to break through that barrier of being uncomfortable and speaking up when it might not be, our first nature to do so. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for you and what you guys do. Honestly, I don't know how my mom would have made it in the valley when they moved here. They moved into Mesa, if they wouldn't have had the kinship of the people that she found. I remember Phyllis Big Pond is a name that I remember, but she wouldn't have had those people around her that she became really good friends with that made her feel like she had community here when her family was still up in Ganado. So I just applaud what you do. And I really hope that everybody who is listening knows that you have so many incredible resources at the Phoenix Indian Center that can really help in many different areas. So I just applaud you guys for what you do.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing. If we don't have any other questions, I'm going to leave it for just a second here. If anyone has any more questions, you can put that into the chat, or if you'd like to come off mute, this is your time to ask a question.
Don't be shy.
Nancy is here.
Oh, geez.
Michonne, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Jolana Bigay Kropa. Good evening to each and every one of you. This is Jolana. I am the CEO for this amazing organization. I just want to extend my sincere appreciation and gratitude for this wonderful conversation. I know I came in just a little bit later than I had wanted, but these conversations are truly what the community needs, and to have wonderful leaders in there who take time to really interface and have these intimate conversations with our community is something that we want to continue to do. Shout out to June. June Shorthair does really amazing work, and she's just been really leading a lot of these efforts along with Candace. Candace is such an amazing young up and coming leader that I'm so proud to work with. They're our civic engagement team that really have been leading these efforts, and I just couldn't be more grateful. And from the conversation tonight, it is truly just a wonderful feeling that as we move forward, these issues, these efforts to educate our community are going to continue, and having leaders like you in those roles makes me feel a lot better about our young children moving forward. So and to all of the organizers, our team members, for putting this event on, thank you so much. I wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again so much for everything that you do. We are going to now turn it over to our team to be able to do a raffle for a $20 Dutch Bros gift card for one of our lucky audience members. And you still have a little bit of time if you have any other questions, burning questions that you'd like to ask. We still have just a couple of minutes. So I'm going to turn this time over to Candace, who is going to draw a name for our raffle.
All right. Michonne, do you want me to screen share? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
All right, let me bring up the wheel for us. Okay, and then this is going to be for the $20 Dutch Bros gift card. So super exciting. And our winner is, oh wow, Belinda, you're our winner tonight.
Yay, congratulations.
Super fun.
Belinda.
Yeah, so congratulations, Belinda. Yeah, we'll be sending, I'll be in contact with you soon about that. But thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for being part of our little raffle. Yeah, we just wanted to do this as a little appreciation for everyone that has joined on tonight. So thank you guys for
All right. So let me come on back here. Sorry, the clicking, I'm trying to get back to screen share. So thank you so much for that, sharing our raffle winner, Candace. And again, we just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has joined tonight. We have a QR code to our website if you want to learn more about our center, as well as to see additional events that are coming up, not only at the Phoenix Indian Center, but specific to civic engagement. We regularly offer voter registration services for both the county and for the Navajo Nation at the Phoenix Indian Center. So if you know anyone who is interested in becoming registered to vote, especially because we have the upcoming election year happening in 2024, we definitely want everyone to have as many supports and resources to be able to register to vote and to get involved in our community. And so with that, again, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Ms. Garlid, for sharing your evening with us and your wonderful insights into the world of Indigenous leadership.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good night, everyone.
Bye. That was wonderful.
Thank you. All right, I think I got everyone out.
Just a little bit short, but that was good.
Yeah,
She answered a lot. She answered a lot.
Yeah, I was afraid we were going to have a lot of time left over, so I'm glad we only had 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of requests for information in the chat.
Yeah. And
Good.
Madeline was on it. She offered a lot of things and we added links. So I think that was really cool.
Yeah. And it sounds like Belinda from Tempe is going to get involved. So I think that's a really good effort. We got